Okay, so we need to feed a 20 amp breaker over to our kitchen outlets, which will be feeding the refrigerator and the two outlets on the countertops. I've bought a standard 20 amp breaker here, and we're going to install that in one of the spare positions. One thing I got to keep in mind here is that I want to install this on the correct leg that my generator actually feeds. So I backfeed an exterior outlet with my generator when the power goes out so that I could feed things like the furnace, the refrigerators, and keep those all going. It does also, turn on a couple of the circuits for lights and stuff. However, you only get one leg of the panel. So you need to be thinking about that when you actually organize your circuits, unless you have a separate generator outlet that does feed 220. That would completely power your panel. But in my case, I just get away with the one leg, and the way it's laid out, it works for me. All right, so here we are in the kitchen, and like I said before, at the panel, this is the receptacle that the refrigerator will be plugged into. So right from the breaker, that 12 gauge wire goes to this outlet right here. You can see these are 20 amp outlets. From there, it comes up and over to this first receptacle on the countertop. This one, we do have a GFI outlet in there. By code, it needs to be, because you're near the sink. You wouldn't want anything that was to fall in there that's plugged in would trip that right there. That one, the way it's wired inside here, is also protecting this one here. So these two are GFI protected, which again is required by code. So let's go put that breaker in the panel now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this panel off here, and we'll be able to see and figure out where we want to position our breaker in one of these spare spots, so that we can get the benefit of having the generator feed it. And right here we have our feed that comes from the receptacle over in the kitchen. We need to get that up there, secure that nice, staple it along the other wires, and feed it down into the panel. And we're going to pop a hole right in the top and use one of these connectors here to get the wire inside of the panel. All right, so now that we have our wire ran against the joist and down into the panel, we can now go ahead and install the breaker and install our ground and neutral connections to the ground neutral bar, which is right here on the right. You'll see all the ground and neutrals ran on this side, and all the other circuits, all the hots, the black wires, the red wires for the 120 and 220 breakers, those are all feeding directly into the breakers. So what we're going to do is end up choosing a breaker, like we said, that will work when I have the generator backed up. So how this panel is laid out and how most panels are laid out is that you have your two hot legs up here on top and one on the left, this whole row here and this whole row here. However, how it works is one of these hot legs that come in is actually feeding every other breaker staggered. So one hot leg is ran every other section of breakers. So these two breakers here are on the same leg. These are on a different leg, but they are on the same leg, and then it just alternates. So these two breakers happen to be, this is the one that gets fed by the generator, which then means that this one's powered. And this set, that set, and so on. So what we want to do is figure out which one of these breakers over here we can install our new 20 amp circuit on to be able to get power. So if we look here, we'll go every other one. This, and it falls right here. So this slot right here is going to be where our new breaker will be installed, and you basically just catch it on this little lip here. And just be careful not to touch that back plate because that is hot, and push that in. So we are working on a hot panel right now. One thing I want to just make everybody aware of is that these connections up here, they are hot unless you were to cut the power off at the transformer outside or at the meter. So you want to be extremely careful when you're working with wires in here. A common thing that happens is that you're whipping these wires around, not taking your time, and this ground sometimes can make a connection on one of these, and it will make an arc flash that you'll think you went blind for a minute or so. It's happened to me. You know, I had an extensively long ground wire, and it actually came up behind me and tapped in front of my face. And it's definitely a scary thing. So you just want to be very, very careful. I mean, we can go and shut off the main feed here, which would kill all these breakers, but you still have hot power here, which is the dangerous thing. You know, if you touch that, pretty good chance that it's game over. There's a lot of current that can run through those. And your body's simply not going to stop it. So let's continue on here. So what I'm going to do is, again, be very careful to tuck these wires away, out of the way. Take your time, you know, look at what you're planning ahead before you just go ahead, watch where your wires are, and just be very careful. So what I'm going to do is actually just look for an open available ground spot on here. Any of these will do. There's also another ground neutral bar on the other side here. We're going to end up just connecting both of these on this side. So I'm going to end up choosing one of these up here. So I'm just going to loosen that up. And you can actually go ahead and stick both your ground and your neutral wires in the same one. You know, electrically it does not matter. They are the same connection. So what I'm going to do is just be very careful, sort of measure up what I think I need here, a little bit extra just in case. Trim that off. You know, and you want to try and keep these panels somewhat organized and looking good so that it looks like a professional's been in here, and that, you know, if you have sloppy work, that's definitely something you don't want in an electrical panel. You really want things sort of neat and tidy. If I had done this panel from the beginning, it would look a lot cleaner. However, I'm kind of working off of some existing work here, so one day I would like to go in here and clean everything up, but it's just whether we have the time or not. So let's see if we could get in here. And I got my connection right there. I'm gonna put that one in that slot. All right, so that's in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and try and get this neutral in there as well. What I'm doing is actually leaving some additional slack too, so that if I ever have to move these around for any reason, you don't have to make any extra connections inside the panel. So sneak this behind there too. Get that in that same hole there. It looks like they're in there pretty good. So just snug this down. You really want to give those a good turn to get those locked in there. And then basically just tuck your wires away. And again, be careful working with your hands, just not to be touching anything that you don't want to be. So clean these back up, tuck those in. All right, so that means our neutral and our ground is now wired. So all it's left to do is just hook up the hot into our new breaker, which is down here. And I just found a wire here that's actually not secured into this panel very well. So while I'm right here, I'm going to snug that down. Yeah, this is completely loose. And this wire is not even stapled to the wall, so this must have been a quick afterthought by someone that added a circuit in here. So we're gonna fix that up too. Let's get this wired in here. I'm gonna tuck this one behind this wire so that it's snugged away. Okay, so now that that is tightened up here, we got all of our wires connected. We're going to go ahead and test this breaker out. So we're just going to give it turn it on here and go check our outlets. All right, so I could tell just by looking at this GFI here that the light is on. So we know we have power to it. So what we need to do now is basically reset this GFI. And the light is kicked off, which means it is good to go. So what we'll also do is just press the test button, which tripped it, and we'll just hit reset again. And this circuit is now live. So that working right now is telling me that the refrigerator outlet is hot as well, because the circuit actually comes to this one first, as we talked about. So that pretty much wraps up the electrical portion. All we got to do now is get the panel back on, the front cover back on the breaker panel, and just clean up our work. So before we put the cover on, I just wanted to mention that I actually have a future project plan for this room. Right now it's just kind of a back storage room, but we're actually going to be turning this into a bathroom. So what I need to do, however, is frame in some walls here, and the issue I see right away is the fact that when this circuit breaker panel was installed, it was installed very tight up against this wall. It's pushing right up against the insulation, so that does not leave me enough room to frame the wall here, which you can see this is basically the base plate, and if you follow that up, it's going to run right into the panel. So what I need to do is actually relocate this panel about a foot or so over. However, the only issue with that is sometimes you get lucky, you could loosen up some staples, remove the screws, and shift everything over. However, this has the main feed coming in from the back of the panel, which is actually straight through the block wall. So that leaves us not many options. So what we need to do is actually call the electrical service company, have them come out, pull off the meter so we could kill the power. And then at that point, what we could do is disconnect the feeds, loosen up all these wires, and actually pull the panel forward just enough to get the main feeds out. And every other circuit could actually stay wired just by removing all the staples out. Then we'll be able to shift this over and actually run the new feeds into a different hole that's in the back of the panel. That'll give us some space freed up to be able to frame in that wall. Then it's just a matter of restapling all the circuits against the wall and everything. So that's why at this point I'm actually not going too crazy organizing all this. I don't like how this is laid out. It's a very sloppy job. You know, whoever originally installed it didn't really take their time, and then there's been circuits added over the years. So I'm going to clean this all up, but I'm actually going to just be waiting till we get a chance to kill the power to this, and we could do all that at once. So that pretty much wraps up this video. Like I said, we're just going to throw the cover on here, and our job's complete. So just go ahead and look forward to the other video of us, and I'll be making of shifting this whole panel over. And stay tuned, guys. See ya.